So we're going on to category 13, number 82. This matches this category we covered of pride. And it's a special thing the Bible calls high-minded, number 82, high-minded. It's easy to be that way, especially when you're very intellectual, very, very mentally capable. But it can be a form of pride and power. And this gravitates people toward the grandiose and supports their delusions and their false ego. They're very 83 idealistic. Now, the thing is to understand whenever you're getting caught into something that's not reasonable, that's not workable, it's not going to last, and it's not reality, and it's not long term. Idealistic, because it's good to have goals and positive, to aim towards something very good and workable. But we're talking about the person too that's always looking for a high. They're bored easily, and they don't tolerate the regular and the bored and the ordinary, in the physical or mental. And it's because they're not connected to God and they're not peaceful. Someone who becomes very idealistic and expects perfection of everyone and all their situations, and just to be careful of that. The desires, the expectations, and demands. And this is another thing that can easily show up in the religious world. People who quickly come to tears and think, oh, God wants me to be blessed with everything all the time and everything to be perfect in my life and me to be constantly and instantly healed and everyone to have perfect, great, wonderful, high, great, wonderful, great, best. And that's their only idea of God. That there's easy traps like that in religion, so be careful of that too. That's what that will be. That kind of a red flag in the church will usually be followed by a lot of other kinds of pride and foolishness. That won't be the red flag by itself, but that's one that'll help you say, this is the person that is idealistic and fantasy based and everything's great. And it's the typical narcissist trait to exhaust the supply that's never good enough. The shiny object syndrome, jumping from thing to thing of what's the next shiny thing. The world is their oyster. The faith can make them have whatever they ask for and want, instead of settling with the normal, the regular, the ordinary, and getting deep things, real things, blessed things. Not tolerant of mundane and ordinary. This is where they start devaluating you, picking you apart, and criticizing you over things that are perfectly okay. Like Dr. Romani says, that a healthy relationship, they're super happy with just ordinary and boring. A narcissistic, idealistic person will be triggered by the ordinary and the boring, and they'll start devaluing you or dumping you. So, a lot of times they'll be thinking, how is this going to make me look? It's not going to make me look worshipped enough. And I don't associate myself with the ordinary. I associate myself with the best and the highest and the greatest, and how is this going to look? Insecurities, or just constantly striving instead of peaceful. So this kind of thinking, along with the addictions and the changing so much, this is another situation where there's not true intimacy, and that they are left craving and desperate, and so they go looking for another high, another extremely perfect partner, and once more cursed, because they will not find peace. And they are 84, insatiable. So insatiable is a trait that comes out, insatiable. A trait that comes out in a lot of narcissists, stronger than others sometimes. But sometimes it'll be seen, but unless you're knowing what you're looking for, you'll say, oh yeah, they're insatiable too, and that explains a whole lot. They can't find peace, they're running around, they're fragmented, they're hopping from one thing to another. That's shiny object goes in there too. Nothing is ever satisfying them, and it's sad. What's easily seen with this grandiose behavior is 85, omnipotent, which I got some into that with pride. They will see things as 86, invincible and unstoppable. They're invincible, they're unstoppable, and so are the other people around them, unbreakable, untouchable. It's hard for them to see weaknesses in other people and limits. The omnipotent person will be easily led around by anyone who flatters them. If they're over there thinking they're God, if someone comes along and says, yeah, you are God, you are just all that, and you're wonderful and great, they will be led around by the nose by that person. They will be a puppet of that person. Just watch out. It's hard to be a partner with someone that weak. That somebody else can just come along and own that person over their pride or something. That's no longer like a partnership with you. That's now they suddenly have a new spouse of whatever gender, there's suddenly a third person real strong in that relationship because that person owns them now. That's kind of like a weakness. Like that would be a hard person to stay with long term. But a lot of people have this syndrome when they're young. They're really young, of invincible, unstoppable, unbreakable, untouchable, and life kind of breaks them out of it. Maybe a lot of things are broken out of people as they mature. But with the narcissist, it seems to stay, and this seems to be part of their delusion and their magical thinking, is that there are no limits. And sometimes religion, like I say, church or religious people, this trait of narcissism can be seen, and in the end time church is encouraged through a so-called faith. This is where some of the witchcraft has slipped into the church. So-called faith that everything is healed, everything is perfect, everything is wealthy. And I'm not sure how much the fantasy leads into this, or Hollywood, all the movies and everything being the peak of perfection and instant superheroes. And some of the verbiage, like if you watch some of these trailers of these superheroes, it's just a joke. It's a narcissistic fantasy, literally. It's like, oh, okay, if someone's raised on Hollywood and Disney, but they can see themselves and others as limitless in some ways, and so they'll be surprised. They'll be surprised when there's a weakness, or they'll be offended because they had this idealistic thinking. And so when they see a weakness or imperfection, they're either surprised or offended. And it can lead to the devalue easily. It's kind of like a parent losing their golden child because they saw a weakness in their golden child or a flaw, so they discard them or something. There's different ways that shows up. But that is go kind of along with the insatiable, the driven, maybe the ravening dog is the invincible, unstoppable. You will often see them as number 87, brazen and unashamed, even when they do something horrible, because they don't respect that, there is a standard. It's just all justified as they go along. They've learned to justify anything and everything and defend it, and they have their usual defense mechanisms. They will defend things, because they have their storyline going and they have their addictions and their supply. And everything is justifiable for that. The end justifies the means kind of theory. But they can be very brazen and unashamed of anything and everything. And that's when they'll act like, if you say, wow, that was wrong, they'll say, you're the problem in a heartbeat. They will have you confused, shocked, and taken aback of what have I done wrong because you pointed out something that was wrong. These traits all lead to category number 14, which is also number 88, headstrong, which is another, this group of category that the Bible puts together of 88 headstrong and 89 self-willed.